In Focus is powered in part by Go Chevrolet at I-25 and the Boulder Turnpike. Your source for new or used cars and trucks, and reliable service for most makes and models. Just visit GoAutoChevrolet.com.
Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Thank you for joining us for Season 5. Later we'll visit Vertigo Art Space for Exposure 2012, Friendship Bridge in Guatemala. But we launch our season with an early visit to Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. This exciting musical production has been delayed due to a severe accident on opening night. But they plan to keep going, so we're bringing you our visit with star, producer, and director Ben Dicke. Well, thanks for letting us sort of crash one of your first, it's the first week of rehearsal?
Third rehearsal, yeah.
For Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. When I read that you were bringing this to Colorado so early, I was so excited. I thought maybe I was the only person in Colorado that had a chance to see it.
You were one of the three.
One of the three. How did you see it?
It was one of those random moments where I was in New York with my girlfriend, and it's like, what should we go see tonight? And we had heard a lot of great things about Bloody Bloody, and went down, did the lottery, ended up with
because those in the know just call it Bloody Bloody. We don't call it Bloody Bloody.
That's right, Bloody Bloody or BBAJ. But we got front row tickets, and it was, being that close was so visceral. I mean, it was
you probably felt like you were in it already.
Oh, well, they spoke directly to us on the first page of dialogue. So,
what was it about this show? Because I know why I walked out of there so excited that I had to call and text and carry on like a crazy person because I loved it. What did you feel when you walked out of the theater?
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of things. One, it's a rock show, and most of my favorite musicals are rock musicals. Jesus Christ Superstar and Tommy and some of those iconic just rocking shows. And so when those guitars first came on, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be loud and in your face. And then the tone, the humor just made sense to me.
It's really subversive.
It's totally subversive. It's super political. It's super antagonistic to the audience and to the political sphere and to America, and all those things just resonated with me.
So anybody who complains that politics is getting meaner and meaner and lower and dirtier and dirtier, obviously doesn't know much about American history, because it's always been this way.
It has always been this way. I mean, George Washington was a shoo-in, but after that, I mean, Adams and Jefferson had some ill feelings when they first ran against each other.
And they say horrible things about each other.
Horrible things, and Andrew Jackson, you know, the first time he wasn't elected because of a supposed backdoor deal, and then from then on, his legacy was tainted by supposed bigamy, and all that was brought out in the campaign, and it was a mudslinging fest.
So a perfect thing to do in an election year. Was that part of your desire to be first to do it here, is that you could do it in an election year?
Yeah, there was a lot of folks said, well, why do you have to do it now? And I said, well, on November 6th, there's this thing happening, and so I think us being conjointly with such a hotly contested race is just really exciting. And that's one of the things we want to do. We want to use this show as a platform for discussion about the political process, and so I'm hoping that it becomes that.
So in a roundabout way, we've sort of given them an idea of what the show is about, but when you have to give your 30-second spiel about what the show is when you're telling everybody about this great project, what is it?
Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson is an emo rock musical, or you could just say a rock musical.
I know, because emo kind of gives it a tone that maybe it doesn't deserve, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, certainly most of the music is that kind of Green Day emo sound, which is funny. Lately I've been saying it's American Idiot beats Book of Mormon, because that tends to resonate with people. But I think you lose some of the political nature of it there too.
Exactly.
Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson is a socio-political emo rock musical based on the life of our 7th president.
That's a nice, short little speech. And we've already established that it's really, really loud.
Super loud.
Super loud.
My sound designer walked into this room, and he was like, oh, oh, it's going to be loud. It's going to be awesome.
I think both of those statements are absolutely true.
Yeah.
Now, will you be providing earplugs?
We absolutely will. $2 will get you a set of earplugs. And if you're not on Facebook, they're on the house.
So $2 for a set of earplugs. Now, what about the cast? How are you protecting the hearing of your cast?
Oh, they're all young.
They're all young.
They can afford it, right? Yeah, exactly. We didn't hire anybody over 30. So.
Well, speaking of your cast, that's all young. I know we're going to get a chance to meet them, and we're going to meet your musical director, too.
Yes.
So I know there's a ton going on here tonight, and I know you have to zip away for just a minute, but if you were going to say to someone, come and see Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson at the Aurora Fox Studio Theater?
Yeah, studio space.
How do you tell them if that description didn't get them alone, what's the reason that they must come and see it? Because you're first. I mean, you are going to imprint this for Colorado.
I honestly believe that Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson is the best musical on Broadway that nobody saw.
And they're going to get to see it here. So let's meet your cast and your musical director so that we can get out of your hair and you can finish rehearsing.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
Ben stayed with us to introduce us to his musical director and band director for this production, Jason Tyler Vaughn. Again, I know you have lots of work going on in just your 3rd rehearsal, you said.
Yeah.
It's still really exciting. How long have you been working with the score already before we've come to rehearsals?
I had actually learned parts of the score by ear for a couple of benefit shows that we did at Cap City Tavern, downtown Denver. So I just plunked them out on the guitar and learned like 4 or 5 songs, and we brought him in to do some fundraising for this production because it is Ben Dicke Productions. And then shortly after that, I got this. I think maybe about a month and a half, almost 2 months later. So I've had all of the score material for about a month.
What was it like when you had it all together the first time, realizing that you were going to be the first production in Colorado of this crazy, crazy musical?
It was a little overwhelming about 4 days ago. When I first got the material, I was like, awesome. I was really excited, and I am still really excited. But it was just one of those moments where I like, man, look at all these books. But I only had the music books. It's not like I got the box with like the librettos and everything too. So I think if that had come to me, I would have been like, oh god, you know. And but it hit me like 3 or 4 days ago that I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing this. Like, we're for real doing this. I have to play these parts for this marvelous cast that we have, and figure out who's singing what and where. That, you know, when they're not a soloist or it's not a specific character doing their part, you know, I get to figure all that out. So that doesn't come prearranged?
You don't necessarily know who's singing what part?
No, yeah. I mean, in the score and in the script, it's like, because it's such an ensemble show, we're struck with this element of having to be like, okay, you 3 guys are chorus 1 and you 3 girls are chorus 2, or you're cowboy 1, you're cowboy 2, you're cowgirl 1, you're cowgirl 2. And then when it's a full group number where they're all singing and it just says like full chorus or full whatever, it's just assigning them their various parts within their vocal range, which I'm still learning too, since this is actually my first production as a music director ever.
Your first one ever?
Yeah, first one ever.
How did that happen? How did you pick him to do this?
Well,
for his very first
Jason
one?
played Wedding Singer here at the Fox that I was in, and then Xanadu, which I directed. And I knew musically he was just top notch. And David Nelson had musical directed both those. And when I was looking at doing this show, I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I want a guitar-based musical director, because the score is so guitar-based. It's rock, guitar-driven. So I thought, oh, here's this guy who I just know is a phenomenal musician, and I like him so much. He's somebody I want to collaborate with.
That's a great endorsement. How does that feel?
It feels really good. I don't often, I feel like a lot of my friends would say this, that I don't give myself enough credit as a musician, and I tend to just downplay what I can and can't do. And even first day of rehearsal here, I left going, I can't do this. And then on the drive home, because I live in Loveland, and on the drive home I was like, no, I can. I totally can, and I know that I can, because it's a disservice.
It's a good thing you had that long drive home.
Yeah, it is. It opens up miles and miles of thought process and processing all of this stuff that's going on, whether it be just how your day went or whether it's work related. And to me, this is, I mean, as much fun as it is, I take it seriously because it's my job, and I play full time as much as I possibly can, and that's what I do. And so to have that endorsement means the world to me. And I actually, when Ben first asked me to do it, before I even said, let me check my schedule, I was already in, because who wouldn't want to work with this guy?
Did
Like,
you know this
seriously.
show beforehand?
No, not at all. No, I mean, I've only been doing musical theater as a musician for about 3 years, so my show awareness is pretty limited. I know the shows that I really like and the shows that I've seen at the Buell and stuff. And
So what are the
I've had
shows
a
you
lot of
really
fun.
like? I can't let that go.
I love Lion King. I could watch Lion King every day. Absolutely love it. I love everything about it. But Rock of Ages was a lot of fun, and that show is on my list of shows, like dream shows to play at some point.
And now Bloody Bloody Andrew
And
Jackson.
Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. I had the CD in my car on a loop for probably, and I still do, it's in my CD changer, but I had it playing daily every time I drove anywhere for at least 2 months.
How does listening to it that much from the original cast recording, how does that impact your ability to place it on new people? Because you certainly don't want to copy what you're hearing, but you want to be faithful to it.
And that was one of the first things out of the gate that I said. I was like, I want you guys to experience this show for yourselves. I was like, take ideas from what they're doing, but don't mimic. Like, I don't want to hear the cast recording in this space. I want to hear your voices in this space. You know, yes, their ideas are good, and there are some discrepancies, as there are in with anything when you hear a cast recording versus the material that you get. It always happens. It always happens. And so what I'm trying to draw out of them is life experience, because when you add emo to something like this, where you say emo rock, it does tweak your thought process about it, because you think whiny music about
How do you
like
spell that?
MEH
Yeah.
hyphen MEH hyphen ME.
But you're absolutely right. When you described it as emo rock, that's your initial sort
The
of
first lyric
Yeah.
is,
icky reaction.
why wouldn't you ever go out with me in school? Like, that's how the show starts, and a cowboy is singing it, and that just sets the tone.
Yeah, and it's a great question, because I don't think I know anybody who at some point in their life hasn't had an experience of rejection, and this whole show, it has an undertone of rejection. Like, he doesn't make the presidency his first time campaigning. And then, you know, you have all these filter characters who come in and out, and ensemble characters who are creating this sort of space for him to deal with his insecurities and all this. And I think when you add emotion to something, you could call any show an emo rock musical or an emo drama musical or something like that, because if you're not conveying emotion in a show, I don't want to see it, because I don't believe you.
Just hearing you talk like that, it's hard to believe that your experience with musical theater is so brief, because it sounds like you really get it, especially for this particular piece.
It was a shock to me when I realized that I understood that, actually. I don't think I've been this passionate about something like other than the guitar, like most of my life. And when I first got into theater and I saw how everything worked, I saw how a director worked, I saw how a choreographer worked, I saw how a music director worked, and I've gotten the opportunity in the last 3 years to actually work with some of the best in Denver at that, and it's been really inspiring.
Well, I can see why you wanted to work with him on this, because he absolutely shares your passion for this. And I know that your cast back here is really excited about the show too.
Yeah.
So why don't we just turn everything around and meet the cast?
Love it.
Awesome.
Great. We'll save our visit with the cast for the update as the production moves forward. Here's a special report from John Moore at the scene of the accident on opening night.
Tonight, in preparations for opening of Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, we had an accident. Ben Dicke, producer and star of the show, had an accident, not at all related to rehearsal or the performance at all. In fact, he was carrying playbills backstage and fell into a trapdoor that some other technicians were working on.
Pretty scary trying to figure out a safe way to extract him, though.
Yeah, I was with Ben, within seconds of him going down. He never lost consciousness. The paramedics arrived, it seemed like immediately, and then they were real slow and careful taking him out. Because the injuries were not life-threatening, they took their time and did it very carefully.
Can you tell me, to help people understand the backstage layout?
Sure. It's in the wing of the main stage. Bloody Bloody is in the studio, so Ben was bringing his playbills from the main lobby across the stage, across the main stage, through the green room back into the studio. At the same moment, a technician had gone down into the trap, pulling out letters to go on the marquee tonight, and literally their paths crossed for a second, and it was at the wrong time as he came up on. that was open.
That's where he went down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks to John Moore at culturewest.org.
I'm Andrew Jackson. I'm your president. Let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Populism, yeah, yeah. Populism, yeah, yeah. Populism, yeah, yeah. Populism, yeah, yeah. This is the age of Jackson.
The new opening night for Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson is September 27th. Visit bloodydenver.com for all of the information and to get your tickets. Now we visit Vertigo Art Space in the Santa Fe Art District for Exposure 2012, Friendship Bridge in Guatemala. Well, I'm so delighted that we had a chance to sneak in while you're still even taking ownership of the space here at Vertigo to have your event. This will be a traveling show, even though it's only here for 2 weeks or so?
Right, so then Friendship Bridge will package it up and send it on the road through their friendship circles around the country. And that's part of the reason why we've printed the images the way we have to make them portable and lightweight and easy to install.
They're printed on canvas, right?
Yes.
Rather than paper, so
right.
they're more durable as well.
Right, exactly.
And Friendship Bridge, tell us what Friendship Bridge is.
Well, Friendship Bridge is a nonprofit. We've been around since 1998 with a focus on providing microcredit loans to women in Guatemala. Our model is based on the Grameen Bank microcredit model, but we are called Microcredit Plus. We also believe very much in the value of education. So we are not just a bank. Any woman that participates in our program also has to go through non-formal education on very basic topics, anything from health to self-esteem and some business-related topics as well.
Because the loans are connected to them starting some sort of business.
The loans are connected to them, not so much starting a business, but actually growing and expanding a current business. We currently have loans out to more than 14,000 women in Guatemala. So the businesses range from everything you'd see in our community, from textiles to motorcycle repair. Some women have a little shop where they sell goods. So there's a whole range of businesses that they have.
And Friendship Bridge is based here in Colorado?
Our offices are in Lakewood. We have 6 staff members here in Lakewood, but we've got more than 80 employees on the ground in Guatemala.
Wow.
So it's a big organization.
Do you have any sense of how an organization in Colorado made that bridge to Guatemala?
Yeah, when it was originally founded, the founders had gone to Guatemala and had seen such a great need. And people often ask that question, why Guatemala? Well, it's one of the poorest countries in Central America. In the rural areas, more than 70% of the population lives in poverty. Women are the most marginalized in that whole region. So
that seems to be a theme in all of these areas of need. And often women are not just the most marginalized, but it's often the best entry point to help an entire community and family.
Oh, that's an excellent point, very much so. In fact, the research shows that when you invest in women, or when they receive a loan, more than 90% of it they invest back into their families. With men, the figure is somewhere around 30 to 40%. We have a greater than 98% return rate on our loans. So microcredit lending is really focused on women right now around the world.
And you got connected to this project how? Had you already had a connection in Guatemala as a photographer?
No, I got connected through Tim and his organization Project Exposure. And Project Exposure connected with Friendship Bridge. And then they provided the funding, and Friendship Bridge provided the logistics in country.
Had you visited Guatemala before?
No, I hadn't. I'd actually never been to Central America before.
What was your biggest surprise when you got there that really sort of captured your lens?
Well, I've spent most of my life outside of the U.S., mainly in Southeast Asia, and so I've spent a lot of time with nonprofits and development organizations, and a lot of times, the people that they're dealing with are kind of in a broken community, or in just they're receiving handouts or they're being given things. And the community that Friendship Bridge is working with is really, really different, because they're not giving handouts to these women. They're giving them the tools to start their businesses or to build their businesses to provide for their families. And so they were very, very empowered, and definitely I think the most empowered group of people that I've experienced. You know, there was a lot of pride because they had these businesses that they were starting and building up, and you know, they were able to provide for their families and able to send their kids to school. And it was a very hopeful environment, considering that it's, you know, a country with like a really violent recent past, and that there is you know, a lot of hardship and a lot of poverty.
Did you have a shot list before you got there of what you thought you were going to find, and how did that change if you did have one?
You know, we had some ideas, but largely it was just, I guess we just wanted to go in and really sort of connect with the different clients that Friendship Bridge works with, and sort of more than individual pictures, just find a way to communicate sort of that power and that beauty of the people and of the surroundings. Because sort of the goal for the images it's not to show people kind of what Guatemala looks like and what the clients look like, but it's sort of to give people pause, you know, to kind of redefine that place and redefine that issue, and make pictures that aesthetically connect with people.
And you still have to worry about composition and light and color and all of that, just like you would for any other photograph.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, that's almost even more important, because when you're really looking for that subtlety and you're looking to, when you're looking to make a picture that instills like kind of a value in the subject, you know, it's really important to have the composition and the light and just sort of the aesthetic feel that really communicates that. It doesn't make this person look like a victim, or doesn't make them look like, you know, someone who's alienated from us, but to make a picture where you can connect with that person.
And it's a different style of communication visually than photojournalists would be.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, you're not looking for the grit. You're not looking for the dirt and the flies and the, you know, those things that are very, very alienating. You're not trying.
Because they're quite beautiful.
Yeah.
The people and the images that you've brought to us are just beautiful.
And one of the, I used to work in the Philippines, and one of the things that a journalist there told me was that she had a really big problem with when foreigners would come. She would see the way that they would photograph their home country. You know, they would photograph the U.S. or they would photograph England or France, and then the way they would photograph the Philippines was really different. The photographs they were making there were dirty and gritty and rough, and the stuff they were making at home was sort of prettier and more sensitive and a little bit lighter. And how that really communicated this kind of difference of value. And so the goal with this was to not do that, you know, to be able to look at kind of these women in their communities in Guatemala with the same aesthetic lens that I would take to, you know, looking at my family or my own community.
That sets a whole different tone for the work that we're seeing. It makes us as the viewer react differently with the same kind of respect that your organization is granting these women. Is this a similar tack that your organization takes when you're sending photographers out on these?
Well, Ben is our first venture with Friendship Bridge, and I would say we probably hit it out of the park. So Ben has set a high standard from moving forward, because he not only brings a great visual aesthetic, he's thinking about it too. And he's thinking about the mission and goals of Project Exposure as well as the mission and goals of Friendship Bridge. And he and I worked together on a lecture series at Red Line Gallery that Project Exposure put on.
One of my favorite places in
Denver.
Denver.
It's a beautiful space. And I was really impressed with his approach to his work and his aesthetic, and he thinks about what he's doing. So he brought that back. And yes, that's the kind of photographer we're looking for. We're not looking for a particular cookie cutter approach. Ben's approach to photography is much different than mine. And it's one of the reasons why I started Project Exposure, because I knew there were other photographers out there interested in doing this work. I'm certainly interested, but I'm not going to do it all, because I don't want all of the nonprofits to look like each other.
Right.
So you want to marry a photographer with a nonprofit that they share a similar aesthetic, a similar mission, if you will. You know, they can think the same way.
So what else is Project Exposure?
Well, Project Exposure started out of my own experiences working for nonprofits and working overseas and having some of these the same experiences as Ben. But to me, it really felt like photography is such a powerful tool to enlighten people or to expose people to other cultures. and that smaller nonprofits, even mid-sized nonprofits, don't necessarily have the resources to use a professional photographer. Oftentimes they rely on volunteers or staff with not the same aesthetic or nor the same equipment. And so through my experiences, I thought, how can we bridge that gap? You know, how can we marry those photographers who are interested in doing this work with the nonprofits who need the work? And oftentimes it comes down to funds. So what we
Doesn't it always come down to
funds?
funds?
Comes down to funds. So we step in and provide the funds to, for the photographer to travel internationally to work on this assignment. The photographer does the work pro bono, and the images that come out of this are used by the nonprofit, such as Friendship Bridge, to promote what they do. And then we have an exhibit like this, or maybe in the future we'll have something else, who knows, that really highlights the whole effort, you know, whether that may be a book or maybe, you know, something that's a website, who knows, but it can take any shape. But we felt like there is an opportunity here using and really harnessing the power of photography and photographers.
Well, I think you've met all of those goals beautifully. I got to preview the images before we came here, and they're exquisite. They do show the kind of respect and power that you're bringing to the women in Guatemala. And I'm so excited to learn more about what you might do in the rest of 2012 and beyond.
Right.
Thanks for taking time to let us sneak in while you're trying to own the space and put up the exhibit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Exposure 2012 Friendship Bridge in Guatemala runs at the Vertigo Art Space through September 28th. Visit projectexposure.org for details.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep this edition in focus. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching.